Okay, so let's take a look at number 2. It says, complete the table below to show the cost of a wedding based on the number of guests. So we're going to use this equation, following up from number 1, to complete this table. So these are independent variable. You can also describe them as the x. So the x values are always on the left-hand side of a table. And this is our dependent variable, or our y values, which are always on the right-hand side of a table. Okay, so we're going to use the equation. When g is equal to 0, all we're doing is substituting g into the equation to find out what the c is. Okay, so that is 100 times 0 plus 50, which is 0 plus 50, which is 50. Okay, so I'll write 50 over here. When g is equal to 5, c should be 100 times 5 plus 50. 100 times 5 is 500 plus 50, and we get 550. So I substitute that into this section of the table. Okay, so let's see when g is equal to 10. When g is equal to 10, c is 100 times 10 plus 50, which is 1,000 plus 50, which becomes 1,050. And I substitute that value into this section of the table. Okay, so let's see what c becomes when g is equal to 15. So when g is 15, c is 100 times 15 plus 50, which becomes 1,500 plus 50, which is 1,550. I will substitute that value into this section of the table. Okay, so the last one is when g is 20. C is 100 times 20 plus 50, and it becomes 2,000 plus 50, and we get 2,050. And we substitute that value into the section of the table. So now let's look at number 3. It says, graph the data from the completed table, label the axis, and provide a title for the graph. So we're going to label the axis. This represents a cost, and that is the y values represent the cost, and the x-axis represents the number of guests. So we're going to label it guests. Okay, so all we're doing is we're plotting. When g is 0, or when the x-axis, when the x value is 0, then the y value or the c value becomes 50. So that's 100, 200, 300, 400. So this in between here is 50. Okay. When g is 5, or when x is 5, then the y values or c becomes 550. So we're going to plot it when x is 5. The y values is 550, so that's 500, 600, so it's going to be between these two numbers, 500 and 600. When G or X is 10, Y or C is 1,050. So when G is 10, then Y is 1,050. So that's 1,000, 1,100. So it's in between these two values. So I'm going to plot it over there. Okay, so when G is 15, Y is, or C is 1,550. Okay, so you're going to 1,500, 1,600. So it's in between that, 1,550. When G is 20, when G or X is 20, Y or C is 2,000 and 50. So it's in between there. So we can see that it's a straight line starting from when G is 50. I'm going to try to draw this as straight as possible, going through those points. You can use a ruler for this, something like this. And it's a line that keeps going, so we're going to draw an arrow. Okay, so we're going to provide a title for the graph. So we're going to label it cost for the wedding, or cost per guest for wedding. But whatever your title is, make sure it has the two variables in it, okay?